Of the 7 Texas fugitives, the story is by no means over.
The California energy crisis hits industry hard. You could be paying the price. And Eye on America. Tonight, divorce, a new approach to deciding who gets the children.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
And this is a special Western States edition. Good evening. The law finally caught up today with most of the so-called Texas 7 almost 6 weeks after they broke out of prison. 4 are in custody in Colorado tonight. Another is dead. But 2 more are still at large, heavily armed, and very dangerous. The convicts' odyssey began December 13th when they outwitted prison guards in Kennedy, Texas, and escaped. On Christmas Eve, they turned up in Irving, Texas, allegedly killing a police officer during a robbery. Then they seemed to vanish until a tip from the public led to today's arrests in Woodland Park, Colorado. CBS's Cynthia Bowers is there. Cynthia?
Dan, the FBI says it was that good tip rather than necessarily good police work that first led them to this rural mountain community more than 1,000 miles from where the Texas 7 escaped. Police acted on that tip this morning after the fugitives were spotted in a mobile home park in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, some 50 miles south of Denver. Police captured 4 of the 7, including 30-year-old George Rivas, the reputed ringleader of the group. Also, Randy Halpert, Michael Rodriguez, and Joseph Garcia. A 5th, Larry Harper, was barricaded in a mobile home for hours until he shot himself in the chest, killing himself. Teller County Undersheriff Kevin Doherty said the first 4 were arrested without incident.
3 of them were arrested out of a silver Jeep that was pulled over down at the Western Convenience. As it left the motor home that's up in the coach light area. And the 4th one was taken from the motor home area.
2 others remain at large, Patrick Murphy Jr. and Donald Newberry, according to the FBI.
They are armed and extremely dangerous. They are, in fact, heavily armed. We know this based upon an interview of the subjects we have in custody.
The FBI says there are reports of sightings of those other escapees from Denver all the way to El Paso, Texas. So for now, an intense nationwide manhunt well into its 5th week goes on. Dan?
Cynthia Bowers in Woodland Park, Colorado. In most prison breaks, fugitives split up and are caught within hours. But the Texas 7 stuck together, apparently killed again, traveled hundreds of miles, and eluded the law for a month and a half. CBS's Jim Stewart in Washington has details of how they did it and how most of them got caught. Jim?
The fugitives had apparently been living in the Colorado trailer park for more than 3 weeks. The FBI says they were laying low and getting comfortable. So comfortable, they began to follow a pattern. One of the patterns was to all drive down together to the local convenience store every morning for coffee. When they drove up this morning, they were greeted by a small army of lawmen. It was this man that tripped the gang up. Someone recognized convicted rapist Larry James Harper from his photograph and immediately called local Colorado police. They in turn called the FBI and Fugitive Task Force, which lately had been chasing tips as far away as New York in a nationwide search for the men. Early this morning, authorities decided the tip was legitimate and quietly flooded the area with agents. Ringleader George Rivas was one of the first caught. A reputed tough guy, he and the others are now apparently talking to authorities. Several weapons were found in the fugitive's car, but nothing like the arsenal the men are believed to have stolen from a Texas sporting goods store last Christmas Eve. It was there that they ambushed police officer Aubrey Hawkins and shot him to death. The men escaped December 13th from this maximum security prison in Texas. The arrests are a major relief for Texas prison officials who were heavily criticized after the men walked out in broad daylight with apparent ease. In hindsight, lawmen were surprised the manhunt lasted this long and attribute it to the fugitives largely sticking together. Now the survivors will all face murder charges together as well. Jim Stewart, CBS News, Washington.
Rising energy costs are continuing to go up, and they are putting a tighter and tighter squeeze on American consumers. That could hurt the overall U.S. economy. As OPEC began implementing its latest round of oil production cuts, Venezuela's oil minister said today he could not rule out another cut in just a few weeks to keep prices up. Oil prices closed in New York today at $32 a barrel. Natural gas prices have risen 14% since last Wednesday. Officials reported today that the number of Americans asking for help paying their heating bills is up 25% from last year. The U.S. Energy Department reported today that gasoline nationwide is averaging $1.47 a gallon, up 6 cents in the past 5 weeks. The oil industry is making big profits. Conoco today reported its fourth quarter profits soared 77% to a record high. The International Energy Agency is warning that rising oil prices are threatening economic growth in a slowing world economy. The sky-high cost of electricity in California is taking an especially heavy toll on that state's economy. CBS's John Blackstone has details of that and why you should care even if you don't live in California.
Why don't we do...
A petition delivered to California's governor today.
These are 10,000 signatures.
Reflected a fear that consumers may soon be handed a huge bill for rescuing the state's power system.
We have no faith in the process that's going on right now. What we see happening is a bailout.
Some taxpayers worry they could end up paying $11 billion owed by the state's electric utilities. And in yet another day of electricity shortages, California is struggling to remain at work.
It's very difficult to do business in California during this particular crisis.
Victor Franco of Miller Brewing says the company is laying off some 200 employees at its brewery near Los Angeles, moving much of the production out of state.
When you consider the interruptions and the length of those interruptions in the past couple of weeks, we've all but completely shut down, unfortunately.
When the lights went out across a wide section of California last week, a crisis that has threatened for months turned real and painfully expensive.
We estimate that last week it was a $1.7 billion impact on the California economy.
And the California economy, warns economist Jack Kaiser, is a big part of the national economy.
It's not just a California problem, so don't point and giggle and laugh. Sooner or later, you all may be caught up in it.
One way may be in food prices. California is a huge agricultural state, and food processing requires plenty of power. At the cooperative that packs and distributes most of the state's almond crop, blackouts are a threat, and soaring electricity costs a burden in both the factory and the fields.
I mean, it's not been a good year for agriculture anyway. I mean, certainly these increased power costs are not making it better.
Prices may soon be going up for much of what California produces, but the state is also an important market of some 30 million consumers. And with power blackouts threatening hundreds of thousands of jobs, Californians soon may not be in a mood to buy. Dan?
John Blackstone. There's news about an energy crisis of another kind, a big fuel spill. Pounding surf could turn toxic fuel spewing from a grounded tanker into an ecological disaster. As CBS's Sandra Hughes reports, the spill is threatening one of the world's most famous, fragile, and remote Pacific Island habitats for rare plant and animal species.
It's paradise found, the pristine Galapagos Islands, virtually untouched by man. The place where Charles Darwin formulated his theory of evolution after observing the thousands of species found nowhere else on Earth, undisturbed until now. The tanker Jessica ran aground last week off San Cristobal Island, starting a leak of diesel fuel that has already dumped 150,000 gallons, polluting a 117 square mile area. Drifting dangerously close to shore, rescuers are saving pelicans and sea lions that dove into the oily slick. We have a serious problem, says Ecuador's Environment Minister Rodolfo Rendon. The ship is listing sharply, and there are about 100,000 more gallons of fuel on board. A strike team from the U.S. Coast Guard flew in to help, but it may be too late.
The bottom line is that once oil gets out of a ship, it is virtually impossible to remove it or contain it on the open ocean.
And that poses the most danger. Unlike the crude oil leaked by the Exxon Valdez off the coast of Alaska, diesel fuel is extremely toxic. The fuel might not only kill animals that come in direct contact with it, but also the algae that feeds so much wildlife there, like the marine iguana. The Galapagos Islands have been hit by natural disasters. In 1997, CBS News documented the devastating effects of El Nino there, heated ocean waters that killed off wildlife vital to the fragile balance of life. Now this laboratory of evolution faces its worst man-made crisis ever. Sandra Hughes, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Up next here on the CBS Evening News, President Bush's fast anti-abortion action. And later, the incoming German administration at financially troubled Chrysler.
It's been a long time coming. But I'm leaving you in good hands. Sarah?
Thanks, Dad. Taking care of business. In business, you can count on things to change. That's why millions of companies count on Office Depot to help them take care of business. Taking care of business.
Why are people tossing their yellow pages? There's something better. Switchboard.com, a free directory powered by the internet. It's business listings, it's people search, it's maps and directions. It's faster, and it's a smarter way to find everything in your town and places your yellow pages doesn't cover. Don't take our word for it. Listen to your neighbors. Switchboard.com. Think outside the book.
It's the only vehicle of its kind with full-time all-wheel drive and a 325 horsepower V8. Is it possible the ultimate performance and control machine isn't German, isn't Italian, and isn't a car? Introducing the GMC Sierra C3.
I've got a client, a single woman who's 59 years old. She'd planned to retire at 62. I figured out that with a combination of annuities, she could do it 3 years sooner. To give somebody an extra 3 years of freedom to do whatever they want, that's a great feeling. You're in good hands with Allstate. Mine.
I hate this cold, dry weather. Makes my scalp itch worse.
That's scalp stress itch.
When I blow dry, my scalp itch gets intense.
That's scalp stress itch.
Days like this, what an itch.
That's scalp stress itch. And this is what stops it. Scalpicin. Clean, unscented, medicated. To stop scalp stress itch.
Fast.
Scalpicin stops scalp stress itch.
This was President Bush's first day at the office, and he did something to quickly please the right flank in his party. He reinstituted an anti-abortion policy that had been in place during his father's term and the Reagan presidency, but was lifted during the Clinton years. CBS News Chief White House correspondent John Roberts has more about the new President Bush in the Oval Office.
On the first working day of the new administration, President Bush today declared his would be a different White House.
I expect every member of this administration to stay well within the boundaries that define legal and ethical conduct.
Swearing in his staff, Mr. Bush said each would be held to the highest ethical standards.
No one in the White House should be afraid to confront the people they work for ethical concerns. And no one should hesitate to confront me as well.
But in a sign that not everything has changed, the president waded into controversy on his first day.
Yes, I am.
In a nod to anti-abortion groups on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, he announced he'll cut federal funding to organizations that provide family planning and abortion counseling overseas. Abortion rights activists fear there's more to come.
The fundamental human and civil right to make our own childbearing choices is at greater threat than it has been any time in the 28 years since Roe versus Wade was decided.
He thinks that this will help make abortion more rare.
The abortion issue consumed most of a day the president had hoped would spotlight his opening theme of education. Lawmakers, anxious for a tax cut, announced they'd introduce his tax bill right away. Republican leaders meeting with the president said they'd try to get it all done.
I think we can pass a lot of legislation by August.
And looking to build bipartisan support, Mr. Bush enlisted the ear of influential Democrats no longer in Congress.
That he's willing to work not just in terms of gestures and public relations statements, but in substance.
That meeting was an attempt to form alliances on the edges so that if the Democratic leadership stands in his way, Mr. Bush can try to go around them. Dan?
John Roberts. At least in the early going today, it appeared the Bush agenda could be delayed or derailed not by Democrats, but by a powerful Republican senator with an agenda priority of his own. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer has the real deal on that from Capitol Hill. Bob?
Dan, just one day into his presidency, George Bush learned he's not the only one with an agenda or the ability to control it.
Mr. President, I send a bill to the desk.
On the Senate floor, John McCain reintroduced his plan to overhaul campaign finance laws. Yes, Mr. Bush has long opposed the McCain plan, but McCain believes he has the support to pass it, and he's pushing for an early vote.
But I also have a mandate, and I believe that that mandate can be achieved under moderate and reasonable circumstances.
The White House wanted to focus on education this week, but an hour later, in a move that surprised the White House staff, a key senator introduced legislation to pass the $1.3 trillion tax cut Mr. Bush campaigned on.
But the point is, this is a needed tax cut.
Graham said he'd coordinated the move with the president and vice president, but just yesterday on Face the Nation, White House Chief of Staff Andrew Card professed to know nothing about it. In any case, the good news for Mr. Bush was that Graham found the first Democrat, Georgia Senator Zell Miller, to support the plan, and Miller stressed he wants to pass it all, not just selected cuts here and there.
Who are we to play eeny, meeny, miny, moe with our taxpayers?
Most Democrats want smaller targeted cuts, but Graham says he'll urge Bush to hold fast.
And what we want is an up or down vote on the whole package, so I don't see any possibility that we're going to pull it apart.
So on day one, the lines are drawn. The argument over taxes will take most of the year, but there's a growing feeling that campaign finance reform may be passed soon, maybe as early as Easter. Dan?
Bob Schieffer. Next here on CBS, the new boss from Germany takes over with trouble on the line and down the road for Chrysler.
Indoors or outdoors, you should see your best.
Right now at LensCrafters, complete pairs of prescription glasses or sunglasses are only $99 each. Why not get both? The $99 indoor-outdoor sale. Hurry, offer ends soon.
Dear Aleve, arthritis pain made it hard to run my pharmacy. Even a knee operation didn't help. The pain returned. I tried Aleve. Now I'm pain-free all day.
2 Aleve can stop pain all day. It would take 8 Tylenol to do that.
Thanks, Aleve.
Dinner time?
No.
He hates peas. So I try little things here and there, like hiding some in his salad.
Here you go. Go for it. You want some salad to go with that dressing?
And something tells me that eventually he'll learn to like them.
Thank you.
You're
welcome. Is it good?
Yeah, real good.
Peas were the first step. Now we have some other things to work on.
Around here, the dressing is Kraft.
Need extra cash? Don't charge it on your credit cards. Get a second mortgage with no closing costs from Ditech.com. With a second mortgage, you can consolidate all your existing high-interest debts, get the cash you need for any purpose, and end up with one lower monthly payment. A second mortgage with no closing costs is smart money from Ditech.com. Log on now for fast online approval or call us at 1-800-71-FIXED.
When I got my cholesterol checked, it was high. Too high. So Liz and I got very careful about what we were eating. We even joined a gym. But my doctor found my cholesterol was still too high.
He's doing everything you asked. Now what?
That's when my doctor added Lipitor.
Lipitor is the #1 prescribed medication for lowering cholesterol. In clinical studies, Lipitor with diet lowered bad cholesterol 39 to 60%, total cholesterol 29 to 45%, triglycerides 19 to 37%. Once-a-day Lipitor is not for everyone, including people with liver disease or possible liver problems, women who are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant. Blood tests are needed to check for liver problems. Tell your doctor about muscle pain or weakness, as they may be signs of serious side effects. Call 1-888-LIPITOR.
Look at those numbers. They're way down.
Lipitor did it.
Ask your doctor what Lipitor can do for you. Lipitor, the lower numbers you're looking for.
The U.S. Supreme Court agreed today to hear a complicated phone company competition case that could eventually affect your service and what you pay for it. A key issue involves local phone service startup companies trying to compete against the ones that now dominate the market. There's also news tonight about another complicated business, meshing the new and old order at Chrysler. The German executives sent by parent Daimler Chrysler to turn things around refused to comment today on reports of coming production and job cuts. We sent CBS News business correspondent Anthony Mason to Michigan to look under the hood at Chrysler.
At the auto show in Detroit, troubled Chrysler introduced a new Jeep and a new president.
Good afternoon, Dieter. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you, Tom. He's Dieter Zetsche, the German engineer sent from Daimler Chrysler's Stuttgart headquarters to save a company in crisis.
How big a challenge is this?
We are in quite some serious trouble. There's no question.
How serious? Chrysler lost $1.7 billion in the last half of last year. By some reports, 21,000 job cuts are imminent. And Zetsche says Chrysler workers should be uneasy.
I think nobody who can think would feel comfortable in a company which is losing a lot of money.
Before its merger with Daimler-Benz 2 years ago, Chrysler was Detroit's most profitable motor company. But the slowing economy and tougher foreign competition have stalled sales.
Obviously, this is kind of a trend, and obviously we have to turn this trend pretty soon.
So Zetsche has ordered production cut by 26% in this first quarter, and he's putting pressure on the unions.
Will you be seeking concessions?
I'm seeking all kinds of improvements which we can get to the bottom line of this company.
Do you feel that the success of this merger is now on your back?
Well, this is a way to put that which might scare you.
Does it scare you?
That's not the feeling I'm having.
But for Daimler Chrysler, the stakes are high. 2/3 of all mergers fail. Dieter Zetsche knows he has to save Chrysler to prove this one a success. Anthony Mason, CBS News, Auburn Hills, Michigan.
Up next, CBS's Eye on America, a new approach to easing the trauma of divorce for its innocent victims.
The CBS Evening News and tonight's Eye on America segment are sponsored by fast-acting Mylanta Supreme. Tastes great as it works.
Is it because I'm getting older? All those antacid tablets I was taking. I wanted to take a liquid for this heartburn, but I just couldn't get past the taste. It was so frustrating. But my doctor knew the answer. My doctor said Mylanta. The Mylanta Supreme I found so soothing and smooth, with none of the chalkiness and grit, but it's strong relief. Mylanta Supreme soothes away my heartburn. I love feeling the sensation. My doctor said Mylanta.
There's something about home runs. The crack of the bat. Watching the ball soar. But sometimes there's something even better. Strategy.
I love corn on the cob. Not just corn, I love corn on the cob. And Super Polygrip holds my dentures very tight. It does the job. It holds all day, right through dinner. With Super Polygrip, I eat all the corn I want.
Sometimes you have trouble sleeping because you can't stop thinking about the tensions of the day. Try Aluna Sleep. It's not a drug. Aluna promotes a natural sleep pattern in just a few nights. Aluna. It doesn't make you sleep. It lets you sleep.
I need to feel strong.
I need her.
Because we all need something different to feel our best. One A Day has created different formulas. One especially for women. One for men. One for people over 50. One A Day. We've got just what you need.
Indoors or outdoors, you should see your best.
Right now at Lens Crafters, complete pairs of prescription glasses or sunglasses are only $99 each. Why not get both? The $99 indoor-outdoor sale. Hurry, offer ends soon.
I want to slip into a billion-gallon jacuzzi. I want to free my feet from sensible shoes. I want to greet the sun in the morning and put it to bed at night. I want personal choice cruising. Princess, I want to go back where I belong.
Encourage your parents and grandparents to start lifting weights now. We'll show you why it could prevent a common serious injury at 6.
Divorce is an inescapable fact of American life. Census figures show 25 million men and women are divorced or separated. But that seriously understates the problem because it doesn't count the children. Tonight, CBS's Jim Stewart begins a two-part Eye on America series, starting with one state's effort to soften the impact of divorce on innocent lives.
After 14 years of marriage, Marcia Hebner Pittman finally has her divorce. She had always wanted and expected to get custody of the children.
Their father and I have worked as hard as we can to try to make things as easy for them and not put them in the middle.
Hold like that and flick it out.
Marcia's husband, Brad, wanted the girls as well, but he's a realist.
I'd love to have custody of my children.
What do you think the chances are?
I don't think that they would be that good because Marcia wants custody too. And why get into a custody battle and the children see us fighting over them?
It is the most contentious issue in a divorce. Who gets the kids? In most states, in most cases, it's usually the woman. But here in West Virginia and in a handful of other states, a new approach is underway, and a curious thing has happened.
Now the wife can no longer assume she gets the kids. Instead, in West Virginia, it is now required that husband and wife, either through mutual agreement like the Pittmans or by court order, share child care in a manner that reflects family life before the divorce. And that, says judges, can cause some wives to have second thoughts about filing in the first place.
So if you think you're going to go to court and lose your custodial responsibilities, you're not in a hurry to bring it there.
In fact, divorce rates are actually declining in the few places now requiring that child care be shared after a breakup. And law professor Margaret Brennig says that's not all.
It also might mean that people would focus on a little bit more carefully on the financial issues than they do and try to be a little fairer and not be trading time with kids for money.
Furthermore, says Brennig, in states where dads are partners in parenting and not just visitors, her research shows fathers are less likely to renege on child support payments. So, starting this year in West Virginia, divorcing couples are not just encouraged, they're required to draw up a parenting agreement.
And a parenting agreement is how you and the other parent want to go about raising your children together, even though you're not in the same home.
But don't be fooled. It's not easy.
That's my baby. I'm the one who was that bottle feeding him, you know, changing the diapers, bathing. He never was.
You had the children together. You need to raise these children the rest of your life together.
It's a new legal experiment to solve one of the most wrenching social problems of our time. How to protect the only valuable thing left from a marriage when their parents have called it quits. In Charleston, West Virginia, this is Jim Stewart for Eye on America.
Tomorrow, in part 2 of his CBS report, Jim takes a look at another innovative approach to divorce, settling the split-up, including finances, without courts, judges, or lawsuits. That's tomorrow. Part of our world tonight. Dan Rather reporting for the CBS Evening News. Good night.
For news 24 hours a day, CBS.com on the Internet and on our interactive partner, America Online, at keyword CBS News.
The energy crisis and why it may be spreading tomorrow. Experience CBS News. With Shirley Hancock and Mike Donahue. This is KOIN 6 News at 6.
How many more victims are out there? The internet